Okay. Good evening and welcome to a regular scheduled meeting at the Ulysses Town Board. I will call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. on February 25th, 2025. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, Ms. Weatherby,
Present.
Ms. Olson,
Present.
Ms. Bouchard,
Present.
Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Okay, now we have a meeting agenda that was posted last Friday. Are there any alterations or updates to the agenda as presented? If not, let's take a motion to approve the meeting as presented as the agenda, motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to privilege of the floor. We go back and forth in person and then remotely. Any member of the public who wishes to speak to address the town board can have up to 3 minutes. I will start my timer. Please identify yourself and your residence, wherever that may be, wherever your primary residence is, and we can go back and forth. So is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Please go ahead.
My name is Jill Strawman and I live at 5291. I gave you a sheet of the concerns that I have. First of all, I was a little taken back. I've had a lot of changes in the last couple of years. I was a partner of Jim Meekers, and so I was very surprised and shocked by all that's going on. So I didn't know until my neighbor told me about this. So, you know, I lived in the village. I had a lot of commotion and noise and everything, and so when I moved back to Trumansburg, lived my whole life pretty much in Trumansburg. I wanted to go where it was nice and quiet. I had lived in the village and the noise, and I wanted a place where it was nice and quiet, and that's why I picked. So that was my main concern when I first moved back to build my home, was in the country. I'm concerned for the congestion of this park in a residential area. It's very condensed where we live, where this is going to be. We have a lot of people that walk that road continuously. I'm worried about the trash that would be constantly thrown in the yards, and then the highway department has to mow that. So there's actually would limit our privacy and the quietness, because even if it goes to dusk, that's 9:30 at night. So we really would have no downtime. You know, I work in Ithaca, I deal with the ruckus in the city. I come home and I want to sit on the porch and go where it's quiet. So it's not like the kids don't have parks in this area. There's a lot of stuff that they have in the schools. Could we make them better for them? I don't know. All I know is I don't believe that farmland is the best option for this whole situation. We don't know if that land needs timing. There's been fertilizer and pesticides on that field because it's corn. Know that for a fact because Jim did the same thing. You have to worry about people's wells. You know, I also know by talking to the agriculture consulting services that you have to be 100 feet away from people's wells. So there's concern about health issues. Is it going to disturb our water levels in where we live close to the areas? So, and I'm worried about.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. But I do have my whole list.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Is there anybody online who wishes to address this town board? We're gonna go back.
Yes.
In person and online.
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead, Chris.
Hi, this is Chris Kale. When I noted that this issue of ball fields in a park had come up again, I made a valiant effort to locate exactly what property was involved. I know Mark Pritz, but frankly, I don't know which property is his. I had a difficult time of it in the town documents, finding the address. I want to again point out that that moving in a slow and deliberate way and getting local knowledge will really help in getting these kinds of things done in the right place. I also feel like it's important if this is something you want to do, that you sort of give equal opportunity to everyone who might want to donate land rather than sort of just counting on people coming forward. So that being said, I also want to take this opportunity to again plug for a townwide hydrology survey. I do feel that a study of the hydrology throughout the township, leveling an area for a ball field in a certain area could help be a flood mitigation kind of thing that could greatly benefit the neighborhood in an area. On the flip side of it, it also, with the impervious surfaces put in to have access and so on, could have a negative impact. But if I don't know the address, and I don't know and I don't have any firm scientific background information to use, I think the environmental impact ends up being either simply performative or the best hunches or guesses of the town board. And, you know, if you get some people annoyed or angry about it, then you got lawsuits. So I would recommend slowing the heck down and get some good information to base your decision on.
Thank you. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Beth Becca, and I actually live in the house that would be right by the field. Right in front of the field, on the west side. I've actually owned that house since 1992, and I have been walking back into those fields since then. We've had all kinds of dogs, we've gone back, we knew the van leaders, and they let us walk all through the property, so I'm very familiar with it. One thing I want to mention is that there are months in the year where we do not go back there because it's a little bit dangerous. The fields, the area is teeming with deer. I mean, and that means all the hunters. During hunting season, like all through that time period, that's all you hear is gunshots all over. We have walked back there and run into hunters that are up in the trees. They line right up against, our property runs right up against that field. Also, a lot of the times we don't go back there is because the ticks back there are just insane. I would come back and take 10 to 15 ticks off of all my dogs, as well as us. We were throwing our clothes off and getting them into the dryer. They march into my backyard, so it's not like they're not going to march into the field. And I could see the little kids, you know, running out there, playing the brook, and all coming back up to get their parents. Who were watching their kids on the athletic fields, and they would be. Another thing I want to mention is that I know there was a path that was drawn from the Trumansburg School to the fields for walking. I've been across that creek and I've gone up onto that railroad line. And it is completely covered in briars. The amount of maintenance that would take to break that field, that path apart, to take it all the way to Trumansburg School would be ridiculous. Also, if you're gonna let kids walk from Trumansburg School down to that field. And there's coyotes out there, they would be covered in ticks. It is a rural area. It's not like they're skipping through people's backyards. And it would take an awful lot of people to clear that area. So I don't even really know why that was brought up. Not to mention that you'd have to put some kind of bridge over the creek. Because there's a creek that runs right there across. If they came down that pathway, they'd have to cross the creek. And sometimes you can't cross that. Most of the time, I don't think people want their kids running through a free, play their fun against like. So I have a lot of knowledge of this area, and I'm just astounded that this would be considered as an athletic. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? I'm sorry, is there anybody, I didn't quite see if there's anybody who wishes to address. the town
Yes,
board.
I'll speak. Alex Acuna, 5250 Cold Springs. I think many of you know my position on this, but I think I wanted to implore the town board to put together an FAQ like you did for the last go around on just all the questions that I think the residents have and the town's position on how we think we can address. Like some of my neighbors have mentioned, some of the details there, but I think as we move forward, what does zoning look like, right? Will they have a special use permit? Will they have a satellite festival of the bluegrass event there? Will that be something that comes up down the road? Traffic impact, emergency vehicle egress, ingress, the what ifs of how to fund this park come together, right? Currently, I think we're looking at a federal government that is looking to reduce grants and spend there. So, what grants would you guys be looking at to fund this? What methods of fundraising would you look at for to raise funds from the town people? And then someone had mentioned dawn to dusk or dusk to dawn, the hours of operation, total capacity of the park. What happens if we don't get the funding to build this park? What happens from there? Are we going to just have fallow land for the next 10 years? When would demolition happen? What would total cost to look like to develop the park? Just so that we have, a goal in mind of what fundraising will look like. And then the lighting component too, I think, does draw concern for some of us, knowing that, light pollution is part of the reason, I think part of the reason why many of us enjoy having homes out here is the beautiful skies and, the nature that we live in, and having, additional lighting out there, I don't think would necessarily please a lot of folks in the neighborhood. So I definitely encourage you all to put something together that would be as transparent as possible for us to take a look at and submit more questions as we go through this process.
Thank you. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Please go ahead.
My name's Diane Ban and I live at 5270 Road. I would just like to start with the note that Marvin and Allison are obviously very generous doing this, way over the top. But I just we don't feel like it's the right place for it. We have all the residential houses right up against the farmland. There's this tiny little strip that's not even wide enough by, you're supposed to have 50 feet, there's only 30 feet going in there. And you're going to decrease the value of their property right there. I think if you were to come and sit there and look at what they're experiencing, it would be a whole different thing. For example, if you had family and they were over there and all of a sudden they had total privacy, and then all of a sudden you have a 2-lane road coming in and out with buses and cars all the time, what would happen to your property? What would happen to the value of your property? If, how would you feel, basically? I feel like even though they offered it, it's in a terrible location as far as what it's for. And I almost feel like if they had a desire to donate something, why wouldn't they do that in a place that isn't affecting so many people, and have it in a place where it's not going to affect individual residences, because the traffic's going to be horrible and the whole road is going to change. And if it was you, would you want it?
Thank
And
you.
would you want your property value to go down? Because that's real money. That's real money in somebody's bank.
Thank you. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Okay, is there anybody else in person? Oh, I'm sorry,
Someone, yeah.
Melissa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Melissa Littlefield. I'm at 4296 Crumbs Corners Road. And I was one of the residents that came to speak to the town board about possibility of putting the rec center on our road. As we knew from the vote that happened in December, it was pretty much a landslide that the town was against doing that. And I haven't seen anything going forward that has given me any reason to believe that the town has changed its mind, aside from the town board wanting to go forward with this. So I'd like to see a lot of process here. I'd like to see slowing down. I'd like to see a lot of information, transparency. I'd like to know going forward, what the plan is. What does the town actually want? What are the costs involved? What are going to be the maintenance issues with this park? How is it going to affect everybody's wells and water supply? Because that's become an issue out in this area. I'd like to know, I'm glad so many of the neighbors are here because I just wanted to come and support them because they came to support us when the park was going to be proposed for our road. And we had a lot of the same concerns. We have walkers on this road. We have animals. We have, the risk of like changing an entire neighborhood and community based on adding a park. It changes the traffic flow, it changes the number of people, it changes your privacy, it changes the noise levels, it changes the light levels. I mean, everything changes when you add something like this. So there needs to be some process in place to make sure that what gets added is what the people around it want and what the town actually needs and wants, which I haven't seen so far. And I just wanted to make sure that I just came tonight once again to voice these concerns and show some support for my neighbors who are over on Cold Springs Road and ask the town to really slow down and provide us with some process and transparency for this as they should in the case of such a big decision that we're all going to be having to maintain and support for the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board?
Real quick.
Sure.
5250 spoke faster. I would just like to say it's a echo the transparency. I guess if people had a little better idea what you're thinking, right now it's so vague. And whether it's purposely or not, the accuracy, the map you handed out at the last meeting that showed the property. Those houses have been there 30 years plus, and it showed a garage on the lot where the boys are and where the driveway is going to be. It showed the house, the neighbor, that property and the neighbors, it just looks like vacant land. So Joe Blow that doesn't know says, oh gosh, this is great. It didn't show the neighborhood houses, everybody needs to get the big picture of it, not just. It just seems like this has been going on for months behind closed doors, and just more transparency would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Is there anybody else in person who wishes to address the town board? Please go ahead.
Hi, Roxanne Reno. I'm the chair of our Conservation Sustainability Advisory Council. This is on a different topic. And the Climate Smart Communities Task Force, and I realize that there's not reports from our boards at this meeting. It's the second meeting, but I just wanted to speak in support of the new business item about community reforestation project that the board's going to be hearing from Cooperative Extension on later. We discussed that at our meeting, and we will be working with them on that, and everybody on our team is very supportive of it. It's great.
Great, thank you, Roxanne. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Is there anybody else in person who wishes to address the town board?
Yes, I'm concerned. I'm Sandy Harrington. I'm 110 Tamarack Lane. And I was concerned about taxes. If you're going to delegate a couple fields to the Trumansburg School, then are we going to be taxed for Trumansburg School plus town and county?
So there's no dedication of property to the Trumansburg School
Aren't
District.
the Trumansburg School going to be using those fields? That's what we were told.
By whom?
No, don't know where the paper was there. Oh, it was on the Free Press.
Oh,
That's
no.
not necessarily a reflection of
And they
accuracy.
said that Chelmsford School was going to be given 2 fields at least for baseball fields.
No.
That's never been said in a public meeting, and I've never made that commitment to anybody, so I
No, it
don't
is-
honestly
it
know
is on
where.
Free Press.
And again, I certainly, the Free Press didn't bother to reach out to anybody at the town. So
Okay,
it's anyone's guess what gets reported there,
okay.
so.
But they have fields that can be refurbished. They don't really need to have more fields off of their property. I mean, we pay enough school taxes now.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Is there anybody else in person who wishes to address the town board? Please go ahead.
Ben Darkler, 32 Big Street. I just want to say, I think this process is fantastic. I really appreciate the quality of the board for having this public comment, bringing people out, presenting earlier in the month, whatever that was. It's starting to bring everyone together to start talking about this. There's a lot of concerns in the room. That's understandable. That's part of the process. And I have all the faith that this board will work through those concerns. I think, accepting a piece of property is just the first step. And I think I would want to see us get locked on that first point. This is an amazing benefit to the town and a very generous offer. And I think all of these concerns can be brought into that process going forward. What does that look like? How do we address these issues? How do we balance the needs of the neighbors and the community, which has a very strong stated need for more recreation of whatever it looks like in the town. I grew up on the other side of the lake in Lansing. Public ball fields there, they were the heart and soul of that community for many students, for families, for people walking their dogs when it wasn't baseball fields. It's such a core part of having a town, and it's a really disappointing miss in this town. And so I look forward to having a recreation space in the town that is owned by the town, that the town folks can join in and participate in and enjoy. And then we figure it out together as a town, how to make sure that it supports all the concerns that are coming up here while still being an open space for everyone to enjoy. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
You have a couple more, we have about a minute left of your time.
Oh, okay. My husband used to play on those fields
Oh,
that
wonderful.
you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
And they were not in with a whole lot of housing.
What about a house right around there? There's a
Not
whole-
as close as they're going to be here. I mean, would you like it in your backyard?
I would love it.
You would like,
I would. Well,
you like the lights and all that.
I live on Wake Street. I live in one of the densest areas of the village. Bring it on.
Oh,
It's
I
wonderful.
lived on Main Street, so I know. Yeah,
It's wonderful to see people enjoy those spaces.
well, yeah, well, we have parks. We have lots of parks.
This would be a wonderful addition.
Yeah, well,
Thank you very much. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Is there anybody else who didn't have a chance to speak who'd like to address the town board? Thank you very.
Appreciate giving us an opportunity.
We have public comment at the beginning of every meeting. We have public comment at the end of every meeting. We're always an email away as well. And I want people to genuinely feel like they have a role to play, because civic engagement is really important. So it's lovely to see so many people in the room. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm sure you all had other things to do. If it's only scraping ice from your property before the next freeze. With that, then we will move on to old business. The town hall parking lot project, I just wanted to give everybody an update on that. It looks like we are scheduled for construction, provided that the weather cooperates. That's gonna start in April. It should only take a couple of weeks to complete. But what I wanted to bring to the town board tonight was to begin a discussion on how we want to manage the programming of the back parking lot when it's completed. So I have had fairly extensive conversations with Scott in particular about facility management, and the new parking lot will be a little bit different parking lot. in that, it'll be striped. It'll have a lot more clearly designated spaces. And, one of the things that we want to be mindful of is making sure that we have designated spaces for the public who's coming in and out. We have people coming in and out of the building all day. Wanting to make sure we have spaces for them, wanting to make sure we have spaces for staff. And I was going to propose some type of programming that in some degree mirrors what's happening in the village parking lot. The village parking lot has time limits, they have designated parking spaces. The reason I wanted to bring it for discussion tonight is because I'm hoping that we can take action on in March. And then so Scott has time to order any signage we want installed to designate the different spots. Because after the parking lot is constructed, I want to make sure that we're integrating our signage and any programming we have related to it with its reopening, so that it from the start it's clear and everybody understands. So Scott is definitely in favor of that. He would like us to take a clear direction, and so I wanted to open it up to the board for conversation tonight. There's no action being taken tonight, but I wanted to get your feedback on what your thoughts were on that. Part of the change over time and what's different from how it was managed 10, 15 years ago is we have more staff than we did previously. And we've had, you know, we obviously do have a robust public presence and more staff spaces. And with going to a situation where we're going to have it striped means that we won't be able to park in some ways as many cars as close together as we have been able to, but they will be legally designated parking spaces, which is upset. So
Are we actually gonna lose parking?
overall, we're not going to lose parking really because we're going to be adding designated spaces along here, which are not designated as parking spaces. But in the rear, our parking is a little more complicated, which is back in 2001, the town signed an encroachment agreement when the property over here sold. Those property owners own a piece of what currently is our back parking lot. It's a small triangle. And that encroachment agreement says that we would continue, that the pavement is ours, is the town's, and that it encroached upon that property whenever it was installed. I don't know when it was installed, years ago. And that when we choose, if we choose to redo the parking lot, then when we repave it, we're gonna pull up our paving, and then when we repave it, we only pave on our section, obviously. We're not gonna pave on somebody else's private property. So there has been parking that's been used by tenants from that building that are technically, that's on currently town-owned parking. So in all aspects, we're losing. If that property owner chooses not to repave, that's 3 parking spaces of theirs they'll be losing. That's currently part of our back parking lot. Way in the back, we're really not being because it's in very deteriorated shape. So the parking overall isn't expected to get sizably smaller because of the addition of, I think, 3 parking spaces right here for smaller vehicles. But we have been running into some parking limitations on days when parking spaces, when town hall parking lot fills out for meetings, sometimes for staff training, things like that. Krista, if there's anything else I can add that you think is useful, please do. Sorry.
Do we have an issue, do we have an issue with folks parking there for extended period of time that aren't staff?
In town-owned parking?
Yeah,
Yes. Which I think historically has not been a big deal, but because of the increase in need for space and carving out dedicated, accessible spaces. If someone comes to town hall and needs services, we'd like them to have
Yeah.
some parking spaces available to them.
because across the street, there's like 2-hour limits, right? In some spots, in the village parking lot.
We have a village trustee present, who might be able to speak to it.
I wasn't looking at it specifically, but.
I don't know for parking programming. So there are some time limitations. I think overall, it's a 12-hour limit.
Okay,
In some
and then there's
places.
2-hour on the parking on the street, and then there's 2-hour down in the laundromat.
Yes.
So there's really, this would be the only spot that's kind of people can park for
Indefinitely.
indefinitely if we allow it.
So I talked to the town attorney. His recommendation is that we're just really clear about whatever we want to do, and he recommended time limits. Excuse me, to ensure that people accessing our building have the ability to access our building. But it really comes down to the board's decision or board's feedback, and I can put together a proposal, but I wanted to collect feedback on what you guys thought about that.
So we have a drawing of what the, it was a Barton and Judas, yeah. I think if, Scott wants to put some signage up, I'd like to see that drawing. With the signs pinned on it that he wants to propose,
Yeah, and
that would be something tangible that we could discuss.
absolutely, but I didn't want to put a proposal together without, if the board said, I don't want to put any limitations on any parking, I want it to be always accessible all the time. Then that's a very different proposal, so that's why I wanted to get feedback before bringing something for you for consideration. So if you think 2 hours is reasonable, if you think 12 hours is reasonable, whatever it is, we can integrate that into a proposal. I just wanted to get your feedback before we actually did that.
I'm okay with proposing some restrictions and especially like these spots. I don't want somebody parking in these spots for 2 days or 3 days, something.
Like during snow over the fence or something.
Right, like, yeah, the last time like, there was a car that had looked at, like there had been at the last meeting. Looked like there had been a car there for a while, cause there was just snow piled up all around and. Obviously, you could see that the DPW crew didn't get in. It's been there, so I'm not against having some hours, especially in the winter.
Okay. Any thoughts on some general timeframes? Time ranges?
Doesn't seem like it's an issue right now, but if it's. You guys live here, you know, so if it's 12 hours or, 8 hours or,
Fine with 12 hours.
yeah.
I think it makes sense
Because
to be
it seemed to have
consistent with
a
across the
relationship.
street
you park.
too.
Is that what it is over there?
I don't know.
Oh,
You know what it is, Ben?
Might be 12 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, 12 hours, sure.
yeah, sure.
I think things you can consider are. Making the most use out of the parking, both for town uses and for after hours uses, certainly people are driving Main Street quite a bit. And so if there's ways to make it usable, around the clock. I know people on Main Street who have to park overnight, people residents on Main Street struggle to find a place to park overnight. Especially when the snow removal is open, they can't park overnight, so. Considering some of those multiple uses is interesting. Yeah, I don't know which way you want to lean on any of those, but I think those are some ideas to kind of think how you might want to include or not include those uses.
Ben, do you know if does the village do any permitting for parking? I mean, the city does, City of Ithaca does, but I didn't think the village did.
Not that I
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, that's helpful. If you have any thoughts before the next meeting, I plan to, Scott wanted to bring it to the next meeting, but I just wanted to gather some general feedback and see if that you were amenable to that general direction, and then we can bring you a proposal.
I think it'd be worth seeing. Yeah.
And they could make employee parking, between like 8 and 5 or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Normal working hours are.
Right.
One supervisor spot.
No, I do not warrant such, but thank you very much. I don't want to see the pushback that came from that. Yes, exactly. Even the mayor does not have his own dedicated spot, so. That would go great. Okay, thank you. The next item up, potential park donation, initial environmental review at the last town board meeting. The resolution that passed directed that we needed, that I and the town planner needed to come back with a draft part 1 environmental review form. This has been reviewed by our very experienced planner. It's been reviewed by our town attorney. Liz did catch one typo that we wanted to amend on page 2, the date for county agencies that needs to be amended to 2/25/2025. But we can certainly walk through it, and Liz has also reviewed it. Because she brings to us a lot of professional experience in seeker review as well. So Liz, would you mind? I apologize. I am
We were fine.
feeling really under the weather today, so I was looking for my pen, which I seem to have forgotten. Would you mind introducing us to, oh, thank you. You don't want me touching. my
I'm
pen.
sick too, so
Hopefully we have the same illness.
I'm over here.
So, would you mind just walking us through how the process for how this was compiled?
Sure, so the environmental assessment form, which is this form, is one of the first steps of the seeker process, which is the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And it starts the opportunities to go out to public, to get involved agencies, which would be any other agency that would have an approval or permit for a specific activity or action. The DEC has a whole manual, we could read it, it's 100 pages of fun reading. But what they've come up with the last couple of years is they have an environmental assessment mapper. It's an online tool where you can go in and either select the parcel that you're using, that you're proposing an action on, or you can draw in your own parcel. And what it does, it will provide automatic responses on several environmental resources. So these questions go from zoning questions to local community act questions, questions regarding the proposed action and limits of disturbance, stormwater, potential impacts to environmental resources. So this form is kind of like a really nice summary of what could happen, what may happen, what that we already know will happen. This is a draft. So this is only the first round that we're going to be sending out to the agencies involved, but you can see the last page is where it gets you all the answers in terms of cultural resources, wetlands, streams, and so forth. Again, this is all desktop. There have not been any on-site studies, which is something that could come down the road. This is the first step of a long process for reviewing the potential environmental impacts associated with the donation and subdivision of the land. So a lot of these questions are pretty straightforward. Happy to go through any in particular. Right now with the donation, considering the donation and the subdivision, impacts are limited. But again, this is just the donation and the subdivision. There's a whole other process. So what we would do tonight is review the FEAF. If we're okay with it, we want to assume lead agency. The next step would be to send this draft EAF as well as a letter indicating that we want to be lead agency to the involved parties that include the county, the board of the planning commission, the board of zoning appeals for the town of Ulysses, which would have an approval for the variance. And then they'd all have 30 days to weigh in on whether they would accept or have any issues with the town board seeking lead agency status. And then we would kick off the review and the permitting. So again, this is just a first step.
And you say with this,
with the applicable parties that need.
for village residents.
So there would be opportunities for public comment at I believe the public planning commission would have a public hearing for the subdivision. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah.
I think there is though, so there'd be opportunities for public to weigh in. Public can always, as supervisor had mentioned, you could always provide us comments and we're listening to folks and throughout this whole process. The zoning board of appeals, I believe, would have a hearing for the variance. And then once all of those approvals came in, it'd come back in front of the town board that we would issue either a positive declaration if we saw that there was any
So-
potential environmental impact.
So the subdivision, all that stuff doesn't happen until we get environmental feedback.
Okay, so
So,
first,
so the process for this would be, we can review it tonight, depending on if the board wants to take action on tonight. The action itself would be sending this out to other agencies for feedback. So that means it would go before the planning board, it would go before the BZA, it would be going before the county and, in the terms of the BZA, the planning board, their meetings are public, you're welcome to attend them, they'd be on the agenda. And that's when when they would gather in public to review and provide any feedback they have. All that information comes back to the town board, and the town board has to make a determination at that point about accepting the FAS. And then the next environmental steps as under the State Environmental Review Act. So all of that has to happen in advance of a subdivision. The subdivision itself, if it goes forward, would first go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The variance, I want to be sure I'm clear, it's 30, the variance would be for 12 feet, not for 20 feet. And I have spoken to fire officials, that meets all fire lanes necessary for public safety equipment to safely access a space internally. So there's not a concern from that standpoint at this juncture. But that is a variance from the 50 feet requirement that would go to BZA, and then concurrently, the planning board could also be reviewing it, pending a BZA variance. So there are many, many steps in the process. This is tonight, what we are simply doing is we are looking at the draft environmental form. And again, this is a draft. The idea is you put out your best understanding of the property based on what we found with the DEC and what professionals have looked at this, and that's why you have your draft reviewed. And so I think we can do whatever the board would like. We can walk through each individual item. We can, if you have specific ones you want to discuss, we can amend things as necessary. It's really up to the board. Mary, what would you like to do?
As far as like going through the whole thing, I don't feel the need to go item by item.
Is there anything that are there anything you in particular you want a clarification on or justification for what the draft answers are?
No.
Okay. Michael, did you have questions or you want to discuss any particular items?
No, this is. These look like pretty standard. Standard process.
And the other thing, right, you've seen many of them. So the other thing is this was done in conjunction with the DEC provides a workbook that gives guidance on how to make a determination. So this is not just Caitlin and Niels's and our town attorneys' individual opinions about what constitutes potential risk or threat. This is we followed the DEC handbook. They have a literal handbook, the seeker handbook. On coming to the draft, but obviously there'll be room for the public to weigh in, and the planning board and BZA and county to say, well, we thought you got this right, or we think you might need to look at this differently. And again, the seeker is largely focused on an actual subdivision of land and accepting a donation. While there has been talk for many years dating back to the 1990s about the need for more recreational fields, and there have been committees held at the town dating back then about playing fields. There's not firm plans of buildings or other facilities like that. And the other thing that this document also indicates is that there is public water accessible on this property. So there is no expectation that it will adversely impact the quantity of water available in individual wells if individuals on Cold Springs continue to be on wells, even though that section of the town is accessible to public water. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. So we do have a draft resolution. If there's no specific item anybody wants to talk about, we do have a draft resolution. The resolution is regarding the initial seeker classification and intent to declare lead agency status. So we can choose to act on that tonight. At this point, what it would do is acknowledge that, this proposed action is subject to seeker. And again, this is not committing the town to accepting the donation. This is just simply continuing an environmental investigation. Any subdivision or acceptance would be subject to seeker. The actions, preliminary classification is an unlisted action. A full environmental assessment form shall be used to assist in determining whether such preliminary classification is accurate. The town board intends to serve as lead agency with respect to seeker review, and in that capacity will determine if the proposed action will have a significant adverse impact on the environment. It would direct me to be able to sign the draft FEAF, which is the form attached here. A copy of this resolution environmental assessment form would be sent to the involved agencies and interested agencies as applicable. Those are also listed in this form. And then in the involved agencies would be given an opportunity to challenge the town board's lead agency designation and provide written comments on the full environmental assessment form. So that's what the resolution does.
So meeting the resolution.
I didn't read the whole thing, but I did read the now therefore.
Second.
I will make the motion. Yes, I'd be happy to have a second.
Second.
Second, thank you. Further discussion.
I mean, this is, like we've said, is the first of. This is just kicking off environmental review. So there's plenty of time for consideration of concerns that are legitimate concerns. You guys live there, so we're not brushing any of them under the table. We're just, we're starting. This opens up the starting gate for that, so. Let's see what they say.
Sounds good. Well, you have a motion, a second. Any further comment? We need a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Ms. Olson,
Yes.
Mr. Boggs,
Aye.
Ms. Richard,
Aye.
Ms. Weatherby,
Aye.
motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. So I will sign and I will we'll get this form out. And I would imagine, for those of you who are in the room who wish to make public comment to the BZA or to the planning board or to come back to us. BZA typically meets the third Wednesday of the month, so they'll be meeting in March. Planning board meets the first and third Tuesdays of the month. I would expect that this is probably not going to be on next Tuesday's agenda, only because of, I bet their agenda is already finalized. But you can always show up to a meeting and give them their feedback in advance. And then our next town board meeting is I believe it's the 11th. If I am wrong about the 11th, it is the second Tuesday. Of the month.
Notice.
It's, well, there you go. See, I thought it was ahead of myself. Yep, 11th and 25th.
Yeah.
So,
And all the meetings, Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Commission, our meeting are all accessible via Zoom too. So you don't have to be here in person if.
And they're listed on the town website.
and if you miss the meeting and want to see what happened, you can watch the recording after the fact. So we want you to be in. And
Good old YouTube.
good old YouTube. So, okay, that brings us now to another wonderful land-related project. So this is for the town Salo Habitat Preserve. I'd love to welcome up Jerry from Cornell Cooperative to talk about a reforestation project. You want to come up and come on up?
Wow, that's.
I know, it's exciting. Let's grab you a chair. These chairs are heavy. You want to sit? You can sit one there.
No, I can stand
Someone
it. I can stand as long as fine.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to sit that close to you, Caitlin. I don't blame you. So I'll-
No. I sit all day at work. so-
If you want one, there we
Thank
go.
you, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I just want to thank the town board for the opportunity to talk about this grant that we've been working on. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jerry Shank and I'm the Climate Smart Communities Coordinator, based out of Cornell Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County. I have with me my colleague Marissa, who's also helping work on this grant proposal. So we're here today to talk about CCETC or Cornell Cooperative Extension's intents to apply for the DEC's Community Reforestation Grant. So it's called the CORE grant, and the purpose of this grant is to reforest land and meet the state's goals of planting 25 million trees by 2033. It's the other goal of this is to increase community resilience by planting trees. You know, we have better flood mitigation as well as heat resistance. I've spoken with Carissa, who chairs the Zala Habitat Committee, as well as Roxanne, who chairs the CSAC Committee. Scott and Dave, who are at your highway department, as well as Andy Hillman, who's the past city forester, as well as someone who sits on the tree committee. And they recommended the Zala Habitat Nature Preserve as a potential site for reforestation. So with this grant, Cornell Cooperative Extension plans on creating a curriculum to teach volunteers how to plant and maintain trees, as well as manage invasive species as needed. So that's something we're going to be exploring as we continue this proposal. So we hope to really provide volunteers with a tangible opportunity to create change in their own communities. So at this time, we expect to leverage our resources as well as the Climate Smart task forces, connections with ongoing volunteer programs like Trees of Tompkins, as well as Citizen Pruners, to deliver this program at no expense to the town. We don't expect any commitment of staff time, although if there is any staff time or staff that wants to participate in this program, we're more than happy to welcome their input as well as collaborate with them. So what we need from the town board today is an agreement that'll allow CC and its constituents, whether that's a contractor maybe that we hire for invasives removal or site preparation, and then as trained volunteers to access the site if we were to receive this grant proposal from DEC. So of course we continue to work with the committees that we've been talking with, as well as any other relevant groups on this proposal. But the reason why we're asking for the agreement signed before we have a formal MOU is because the deadline for this grant is going to be on the 12th. And your next town board meeting is going to be on the 11th. And we understand that there might be some concerns or reservations about the agreement. The agreement is just there to say that we have access if and when we get the grant. But we do understand that there might be some concerns to address. So what we would like from the town board is permission for the town supervisor to sign the agreement whenever all these concerns or I guess channels have been gone through. Yeah, so that's kind of what we have for today. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask and we will try to respond as quickly as we can.
Sounds good.
So-
A couple of questions.
Yeah.
Have you looked at the property yet, or are you that far along in it?
We have not, but we
I'm
do.
familiar with the property.
Yes.
I work with the Citizen Pruners Group, which recently started in Trumansburg last year, and we did a work day. Also, I'm just a resident of Trumansburg, so I walk in there often. But we have not done like a formal going through with Andy Hillman or Marvin Pritz or any of the other members that we've talked about to like actually map out where it's going. We kind of wanted to make sure that you were interested and wanted to get on before we started doing all this.
Yeah, just curious what kind of invasives are in there.
A lot of them, yeah. I mean, a lot of the shrubby things, my guess is that was probably used as pasture land at one point, and the DEC back in the 20s thought, oh, plant all these really woody things. They grow really fast. So things like honeysuckle, privet, buckthorn, multiflora rose.
It's all the low growers.
Mostly, yeah. As far as I'm aware, there's not a lot of invasive trees that we have to deal with. It's mostly just shrubs and then some herbaceous things as well.
And then what kind of, are you planting apex trees, or what kind of things are you?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten to the part of like actually figuring out species. They have to be native species. They have to be mostly overstory trees, so we can use some of the funding for understory plantings, still woody things, no herbaceous things, but it would still be mostly trees. And then that would kind of depend on the site. So like, there's some areas of that site that's very wet, so very different plantings versus the stuff that's like up on the hill.
Mhm.
Yeah, but taking into account like what's already there, and what would be a appropriate forest community for that site.
Right, and we'll also be working with the DEC forester who manages Portland and Tompkins County, so we'll be getting their insight as to what species that we should be planting, how many trees we should be planting, as well as what the actual site conditions are. They're going to be the ones who are going to be checking the sites before we actually get the proposal signed by DEC. So they would obviously be going through the proper channels to make sure that we're following all the right protocols.
So the deadline you said is March 11th,
Well,
12th.
and I know the town board is meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
When would you, what's the anticipated turnaround time? Like,
For when we get notified?
Yeah.
July.
okay.
Or add on a few months based on.
I know,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna say,
Give
or take.
Yeah, we're,
Give or take a year. You know.
In July.
A July of 1 year, yes.
That's true.
So it's kind of unusual, it would be unusual, and I did mention this last week, that it's unusual for the town to authorize access to contractors without having an MOU in place. And so what I'm proposing, and I'm amending the resolution that I presented, that Carissa printed out, and Chris and Scott, you guys met yesterday or today?
yeah.
And so, she provided some language about, what's been presented today in terms of, whereas what the, what would happen with the removal. And so what I'm suggesting, tonight is, amending the further resolved that the town supervisor is approved to sign an amendment or an agreement or MOU pending town attorney approval. Because I think one of the big things that your town attorney will always say is liability, like, you know, and making sure that we have those things in place. And so I'm comfortable moving forward with this tonight. I think it's a great opportunity. You know, it's interesting, when the town acquired the Salo Habitat, they actually didn't have a management plan. There was no clear direction, and Marvin Pritz is, in particular, as well as the Salo Habitat Committee and Andy Hellman, have really made a huge difference in the management of that property. But actually coming up with a management plan long-term, it is really important. That wasn't taken care of back in, I guess, 2018. But we have the opportunity, I think, to make some good investments in this. So thank you for this opportunity. So that would be my recommendation. So we can go ahead with what they need for their grant application, but it gives us the ability to actually have the attorney make sure that we're, you know, dotting our i's and crossing our t's in MOU. So.
One question in your resolution, in the second to last paragraph, it says resolved by this August body.
Just wondering what that was.
That was in the other one too.
It was, so I took that from them. They called us an august body, so I just kept it, so.
You know,
It's a Gus, not August.
Oh, right,
Oh,
I should
no.
also mention
I
that
had a
this is-
question about that.
Oops, sorry.
No, it's this one.
Yeah. Right, I also wanted to mention that we'll be working with the City of Ithaca's forester. They have their own site that they're gonna want reforested, Lighthouse Point. As well as Dryden is also gonna be working with us on this at the Dryden Rail Trail as their reforestation site. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's funny because they pointed out exactly the same thing, but I did want to mention that this is gonna be a multi-site project. And we do have the cooperation and collaboration with the other cities and towns.
So. Second. with,
Yes.
Um,
Oh, I'm moving
with your
it.
noted amendment.
Yes. And Chris, I can give you the written version of what I just
Yeah.
tweaked.
You're right with that?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Yeah.
An august body is a group of people who are respected and impressive.
I would again like to point out that this is their language. No, I would never.
Just trying to flatter us.
Sorry, I didn't know that that's what you were asking over.
Yeah, what the friend.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I will move this. Is there a second? Michael, you seconded. Any further comment or discussion?
No.
Okay, so I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I'm gonna write this out quickly. Sure. Well, thank you so much. I
Yeah,
think
thanks so
they're
much.
appreciate it.
If you have any questions, feel free to email us or contact us. We'll be around.
Wonderful.
So get the ball rolling on the MOU.
Thank you.
Care back for you guys.
No, we'll take care of it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, I'm gonna hand this to you. So. If I don't do it now, you don't get it. Wonder what we do. Okay. Appointment, so the next item up is an appointment to the Youth Commission. And Steve Manley, is interested in serving on, the Ulysses Youth Commission. We do have an open spot on the town committee. The person, who had been serving, ended up moving out of the town, recently. And, so we do have an open spot. We also have one for the village, Ben, so if you have any ideas, we would obviously appoint them without their knowledge, but, so Steve Manley, previously served on the planning board. And he has a long and extensive background, in education himself. And I think one of the real attributes that he brings, is he is actually a resident of the Ithaca City School District. And it's long been, an issue that we've not had somebody engaged in that school district, serving on the youth commission, when a third of our community lives within lives within the Ithaca City School District. We've been advertising and here's show, so.
And he lives in the town, Ulysses, just
Yeah.
on the Ithaca side, the
Yes.
Ithaca School District side.
So I would like to move his appointment to the youth commission.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, upcoming events, at least in the town board life. March 11th, we have our, and 25th, our next regular town board meetings, here at Town Hall. We did, have minutes, our minutes from February 11th of the 2025 meeting, was our last regular meeting. Did anybody have any changes or alterations needed to those?
No, I thought they looked good.
Okay.
So make a motion to move.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
I don't have any notification.
That's true.
I've spent no additional money. And that brings us back to privilege of the floor.
Can I,
Yes, do you have something else?
two things, just one, on next Wednesday, we have a comp plan steering committee meeting. Anybody who wants to join and participate in the comp plan steering committee, come on out at 5:30 right here. That was it.
Is there a topic or?
No, that's just our regular meeting.
Oh,
And either the 19th or the 20th, there is gonna be a full-blown public informational session. We're still coordinating the site and the confirming the date. But we wanna get folks to see what the proposed vision statements or potential vision statements are, and get their input, so. March 19th or 20th, yep. We're hoping it's at the high school library, but we'll make sure that that gets updated. And I'll confirm it at our next meeting. So we'll have a meeting before then.
Sounds good. And if you're not in the newsletter, if you're not signed up for the newsletter, you should email Carissa and you can email her, or you can leave your email address right over there and we'll add you. Because we send out a lot of great information that way, so. Okay, we are back to privilege of the floor. We will go back and forth in person, and then online. Anybody who wishes to address the board has up to 3 minutes, so anybody in person who wishes to address us. Please go ahead.
I was thinking that, of course, everybody has their own self-interest in all of this. An idea that was occurring to me while I'm sitting here is that a compromise in the donation might be able to be had. Perhaps there could be some land sold closer to the properties of what we're talking about. And people would have a chance to buy that. And then they could take that money and build something closer to town in an open field that does not have to wipe out, the farmland behind. Or, it won't take so much development of the land. And I just think instead of saying all or nothing, the compromise at least should be considered. Because I feel like our privacy should be maintained and the town needs perhaps fields, but I feel like there's a lot better location and maybe they could have something with the land grant that like cross-country ski trails or hiking trails or whatever. trails for students in high school to be able to go out and study plants and stuff, but have it back further. And I just think there's a lot better place to have it than plunk down in the middle of our road.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board?
I had just one additional comment, and it relates back to the demand. I'm reading through some of the FAQs that you guys put together for the original Crumbs Corner piece of land, and the numbers, they don't really seem like a mandate. That that like you're looking at some of the sports for 66 kids in 2023 playing football. I'm looking at this 100 kids playing soccer, and then when you guys did the Trumansburg community assessment needs data, there's only 146 people that showed up for that. Do you really feel like that's a mandate to determine that this is what the community needs? So I think as you guys put this together, the FAQ for this next go around, that that you show that there's a desire and a demand for this, because when you look at it, for a town of 5,000 people, it's really, the numbers don't add up.
Thank you. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Please go ahead.
I just was wondering if anyone on the board had been out to look at the property.
Yep.
You've been out there, you walked it.
Yes, I have extensively.
I was gonna say for anybody else that wanted to come out and look at it, I'm there all day tomorrow. I'm at 5270 Cold Springs Road. You can stop by, bring the boots, go back. This is actually one of the months that I do go back there. There's no takes, so feel free to stop by.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board?
Yes, I do. Chris Kale, 3110 Du Bois Road. I think I forgot to say my address when I spoke before. I just wanted to be expressing gratitude for taking the time to explain about how important it is that people who are in the Ithaca City Schools have some representation as on some of the boards in some ways, just to make sure that those kids are also getting some form of recreation. I think opportunities to connect onto the Black Diamond Trail would be really good to look at, particularly, I mean, maybe y'all could come up with like a procedure for how people would donate land. I know Town of Ithaca in some areas has been really successful in people bequeathing land. It might be worth having a policy. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board?
I'll just close with a quickie, Mark Sherman again. I asked you this the last meeting, just to clarify. You as a committee will decide whether to accept the donation. In your pinpoint presentation with some layouts, there'll be other public meetings about planning and site plans and different things. As I read it, if I understand it right, you'll be having meetings, but ultimately, there will be no public vote for anything. You'll have the decision to make, just a handful on the board.
So for clarification, New York State stipulates what we are allowed to send out to the public for a vote or not. So this board could not send this out to a vote in the public for a public referendum if we wanted to. It wouldn't be legal. So charitable donations for recreational purposes are not subject to permissive referendum. If we were to go out and try and purchase a piece of land like we did previously, right? Because accepting a donation is very different from purchasing. If we were to purchase this piece of land, it could go to a public referendum if it was triggered by a petition process. But charitable donations for recreation purposes are not subject under New York state law to permissive referendums within townships. So that's just New York state law.
And just another clarification on your presentation last week. I'm understanding it correctly that Water District 3 will pay the water bill. No, that's not correct. Who will pay the water bill for the park and everything?
The town would pay for it as the owner of the property pays the water bill for the property.
Okay, very good, just clarifying. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure, absolutely. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Okay, well. Then. My fellow board members, this august body, I will throw it to someone else. Is
Motion to adjourn.
there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Gonna have to use that new term though.
Yeah.
I like it.
Nice.
I was hoping to find you some brownie points though.